Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the anthem by Joel Longfellow.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. Quand t'embrasse et porte l'épée, il se porte la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée de plus brillant exploit. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Joel. Beautiful job as always.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. My pleasure as always.
Madam Clerk, are there any introduction of addendum items?
Thank you. None this evening.
Confirmation of agenda, mover and a seconder, moved by Ron Bodner, seconded by Yvonne Doucette. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Any disclosures of interest, councillors? Seeing none, I will move on to the adoption of minutes of the regular meeting of Committee of the Whole held on April the 11th. A mover, Councillor Butters, seconder, Councillor Main. All in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. Determination of items requiring separate discussion. And I'll go to my left. Councillor Danch. Thank you. Councillor Bodner.
Item 5.
Councillor Doucette. None? Thank you. Councillor Main.
Item 2, please.
Thank you. Councillor Butters.
Item 1, and I'll be speaking to number 5.
Thank you. This evening we have a delegation who will come to the podium. We've heard this delegation before, so happy to have you back, Patty. So it's Patty Moss, and she's going to present us a summary report regarding the trial roadside mowing delay, which has delayed rural roadside cutting on all municipal roads for the pollinating insects. And that report is on page 11 in your package. Welcome, Patty. Just push that little red button so you're heard. Great, thank you.
Good evening, Deputy Mayor, councillors and staff. On behalf of the Environmental Advisory Committee, I'll be presenting a summary of the monitoring I performed along the trial area for the delayed roadside mowing. I do have a full report available for those who need it as well. Essentially, we're here to seek approval for the continuation of the trial area. Hopefully, based on the information that you received tonight, you'll have a better understanding how important our roadsides are. The roadside is indeed a unique habitat. The flowers that grow along the roadsides are a unique and resilient mix of non-native and native flowering species, all which the pollinators have depended on for nectar and food for their survival. Before I switch to the next picture, I just take note, this is on Pinecrest Road, and this is a local beekeeper actually gave his thanks at the end of the fall. That's his boxes behind there. I was actually really surprised at the results. I never expected, after years and years of mowing, these flowers have been suppressed for all these years, they would come to emerge and flower. 36 different species I found alongside the roadsides that were flowering. These are just a small example of what's along the roads. But one thing also what I was looking at regarding this initiative, I was trying to see if there was nectaring flower plants throughout all seasons. I was really especially concerned about fall. Fall is the most critical time for pollinators, especially migrating butterflies. And also a lot of our pollinators go in hibernation, such as our bees. One thing I also did, I also monitored seed development. So every single flower that went into seed, I basically observed it and took notice of its seed dispersal, whether it have any impact on any neighboring fields or residential properties. Also, before I start discussing about seed development, please keep in mind that there's still a final mowing being done after October 1st. So a lot of the plants that have held onto their seeds, such as the Queen's Anne lace, the seeds would have been removed from the roadside at that time. Queen's Anne lace flowers close and trap out their seeds. They even hold into their seeds into the middle winter months. Knapweed, it's everywhere where it's blooming. It's not everywhere along the roads. It's wherever it's blooming, it will concentrate on that area because the seeds are trapped inside the base of the flower. I didn't find any concern with this plant because of the mowing we perform in October. Thistles, though, I've noticed that could be a concern because once they've flowered, they go into seed, and the seed is carried by wind. But I have an idea for that, actually, so just hold on that thought. As well as sow thistle can be a problem as well. As you can see on the right-hand side picture, the flowers are in bloom and producing seed at the same time. So it's a very aggressive plant in that sense. Ragweed. Yes, when I saw ragweed, I was actually really concerned about it. There's a lot. And what I noticed with ragweed, it's really concentrated on the first 2 feet alongside the road, nowhere else. It actually prefers the rough conditions beside the road because no other plant grows there, so it doesn't like competition with other flowers. But one thing about ragweed, when I saw it growing up, this is Cedar Bay Road, when I saw it coming up, I also monitored at the same time the roads that did receive the second cut. And lo and behold, ragweed is in full force along the roads that receive the second cut as well. And what's interesting enough is when I compared the plants on that get the second cut, well, thistles are there as well, sow thistle, the thistles are ragweed, but I found the plants, when they get the second cut, they go in stress mode. So basically what that means is instead of working on foliage and leaves and stems and all that, all they're working on is producing seed. So the roads that received the second cut still had a large amount of seed from ragweed, sow thistle, and thistles anyways. I also, when monitoring, I measured heights of the roads. And at the end of the year, the average height for Weaver Road was 22 inches. And for Pinecrest and Cedar Road, the average was 27 inches. The highest measurement of vegetation was on Pinecrest Road, and it was 48 inches. And reason being for that, the ditch was very deep at this one resident's property. I noticed it didn't receive even the first cut mowing anyways because of the depth of the ditch. So that's one thing to consider. I didn't find, though, being at 48 inches to be a safety concern regarding pulling out with a vehicle. I can't express how much monitoring I did of farmers' fields. I looked what was in the field growing to see if there's any species that could be compared to be growing along the roadsides as well. And I also took careful monitoring of an organic farmer. We have the only organic farmer in Niagara in the trial area. So he had concerns, but we communicated throughout the year. But one thing I noticed with him, he still supported the plan. As with this picture, he just mowed alongside his cornfield, but he left the roadsides. He didn't touch it. Whereas other farmers I noticed continuously mowed, but that's what they always done along their fields. So with looking at fields, this picture is corner of Weaver and Kalali. And on the left, there was an infestation of a certain plant species. So I went and looked at it, and it's lamb's quarters. And it just to give you an example of what I was doing. So lamb's quarters, I did not find it growing alongside the roadsides. It can't handle the competition with other plants. So issues, complaints, well, the main concern I came across was sow thistle. Farmers that use modern day methods they don't have a concern regarding this plant. But the organic farmer, of course, he does. So one thing I tried was hand cutting it. Didn't work. It's just like the second roadside cut, it just keeps coming up vigorously. So a solution I had was just along his fields, removal by hand. It's very easy to pull out. This is something I can actually communicate to residents as well. They can remove it on their properties. I have an idea, though, still. We can maybe avoid this in the future. So this is a great pick. This I'd taken on Weaver Road, and there's 2 caterpillars actually eating on the same leaf. So even it's just right beside the road. So the roadsides have made a habitat for monarchs, a really successful habitat. I was blown away again. I counted how many milkweed plants on every single road, and then I counted how many eggs and caterpillars that were alongside these roads. Every 2 weeks, I went out and counted and did my monitoring. And Weaver Road had 148 milkweed plants, 79 eggs and caterpillars. But Pinecrest Road had 176 plants and 155 eggs and caterpillars were counted. And then Cedar Bay Road, which I was told by some staff members, says, maybe Cedar Bay wasn't a good road. But just by showing this one, the data with 66 common milkweed plants, 52 eggs and caterpillars were found. Mind you, there's be many more because I only did bi-weekly monitoring, so there'll be many more caterpillars. But I wasn't just doing this just for the monarch butterfly. I was doing it for all the pollinators. And one thing I found was a lot of native species of bugs I discovered along the roads, especially the spotted lady beetle, which is a rare find nowadays. The butterflies, these are just a few, the viceroy, black swallowtail, it's a yellow sulfur, the butterflies. These are all taken alongside the roadside where I was monitoring. As well as we're providing, so the food for the butterflies, but we're also providing food, a host plant for the caterpillars of these species as well. And in the top left, that's a black swallowtail caterpillar, and it's one of the main food sources is Queen's Anne lace. Also, I threw this one in for a joke, but this was a really neat moment. I was in Cedar Bay Road, I was monitoring, and actually this caterpillar stopped traffic. This pickup truck stopped, and people were staring out the window, and they asked me what type of caterpillar it was. I went over and started talking to them, and then residents came out and looked. It's a Pandora sphinx moth, in case you're wondering. And it's giant. It's like 4 inches in length. And so one of the questions the residents brought up was, well, I'm noticing a lot of butterflies and bugs lately, but this caterpillar, is this because of the roadside delay? So it's just getting conversation within residents and understanding the big picture. Goldfinches. The goldfinches were feeding alongside the roads for the seed heads of chicory and teasel. Orb weavers. The reason why I really want to bring up orb weavers. In the beginning last year was really wet. And one thing I found was, since we didn't mow the grass wasn't able to grow the vegetation through the ditches while the stagnant water was sitting there. But the orb weavers, I noticed, were able to build a habitat. They actually had intricate webbing over the ditches. And lo and behold, it actually, in the webbing, it caught hundreds of mosquito larvae. So it's actually helping the whole biodiversity, what's along our ditches. Also, the bees are loving the roadsides. This is another native bee. It's a green sweat bee. I just was reading a document this past weekend, studies in U.S. saying native bee population has dropped 23%. So just something to think about. If we're having problems with our farmed bees, our honeybees, they're dying, they're having issues with that. So if our native bees are dying as well, disappearing, we're going to have a big problem in the future. So why not, this is another bonus and benefit to our roadsides. I don't know how many of you have seen these green bees lately, but they are along the roadsides. A really good news story. So I went door to door in the beginning to get permission and questions and comments from residents. And I was always telling residents, if you cut your grass, don't cut it, just leave it, just keep cutting it, sorry, that's what I meant, because only grass will come up, so don't bother. Well, this resident, they left it. They cut the swath right against the road, which is fine because that's ragweed. So they cut all that, but they left a 4-foot swath across their whole front of the property. And this was taken just before the mowers went through, 2 days before. It was humming with bee activity. And that's on Cedar Bay Road. In the summertime, Beth Palma from the Environmental Advisory Committee and myself set up a booth at the farmer's market, and just basically teaching the public regarding our roadsides, what we're doing with them, and as well as how important pollinators are. And we're releasing butterflies. And the butterflies I used was the ones I collected off Kalali Street, Brookfield, and 2nd Concession. I rescued over 300 and I gave up at that point.
Patty, you have about 4 more minutes.
Yep, I'm pretty much done. So with these butterflies, which is what these boys are holding, are from Kalali Street. And this just shows you the bigger picture that with these roadsides is a great initiative project we're undertaking, and it's for our future kids, for our food. And I just want to let you know this future recommendations. I had an idea. This is Weaver Road. What I noticed is the first section of Weaver Road on the east side, the tractor that went to do this first mowing, he didn't drop his second mower blade down as one section for some reason. I don't know why. But as you can see, because he didn't cut all the way, goldenrod and aster were able to grow. Now you see the height of the goldenrod aster. I had an idea for future time, just something to think about. If we have a shorter cut for the first cut, will actually enable the goldenrod and aster to come up. They're taller vegetation, they're fall blooming flowers. They almost can provide a block for those thistles that grow and produce seed throughout the summer. Just an idea of mine, I'm just thinking about that. This is another example. This is Pinecrest Road. The mower did go through this the first time, but the ditches are so deep there, it didn't cut so much of the goldenrod aster. So with that in mind, I'm thinking it actually could play as a buffer for any non-invasive weeds, seeds to be blown anywhere if we have maybe a buffer of goldenrod aster going through on the backside. Just an idea. But that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Any questions of Patty? Yvonne?
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. Patty, first thing I have to say is thank you. You've put a lot of time into this. When you're talking going out, and I know that at one point you were going out with your kids even, you were bringing the whole family was going out collecting stuff, collecting information, collecting the butterflies, and so on and so forth. So all I can say to you and your family is thank you for this information. And I believe this information is going to be important for us to move on to the next step. And without this information, we probably would not be able to move on to the next step. So thank you very much for this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just so impressed by all of this. I think that more people embrace this than we ever thought was possible, and I think it's been I think it just has turned into a really positive thing. So this would be year 2 coming up, and I'm certainly in favor of it, you know, continuing on, because I think the work that's being done here just speaks for itself. So well done, well done.
Thank you, Patty, and I totally agree. I'm impressed that this works so well, you know, because we thought we'd get a little, I think we got a little bit of flack, but nothing that we couldn't handle. And like Barbara said, there's been a buy-in for this, and that's a good thing. And so, and for all the members of the Environmental Committee that have come out to support you, thank you very much. It's great when I see that. I know that they're behind you, and we are. So thank you for coming and bringing us that great update, and good luck in all the future. And we'll see you next year telling us the same thing, even better. Okay? Thank you. Thank you. Before I move on to my mayor's report, I need to have a motion to accept the items not requiring separate discussion. Councillor Desmarais, and then moved by Councillor Desmarais, seconded by Councillor Butters. All in favor? And that would be carried. Thank you.
You're trying, someone's paging you in the back.
Hi.
Hi.
I know there's a protocol here, but I just found out today via email.
Would you like to come up to the podium? Want to come up to the podium? If I have Councillor's permission to have her speak, I believe she wants to speak on this item.
My name is Kathy.
She understands.
Kathy, you're speaking on the item of the butterflies?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Councillor, are you going to allow that? Councillor? Mover? Councillor Main, second by Councillor Desmarais, all in favor? That would be carried. Okay, Kathy, go ahead.
Like I say, I just found out today that that Patty was going to speak on this matter. So I had no way of saying that I would like to address this matter. We live at 851 Pinecrest. Our home was in the picture. And we have issues with this. And we have expressed our issues previously, and we were told that we would be notified of discussion, and we've never been notified. So it was just through a very obscure way that I found out that this was happening today. If Patty was still here, she is, I would be asking why Pinecrest, Cedar Bay, and Weaver Roads. I want to know, why does the city do 3 cuts of the ditch a year? There's obviously a reason for that other cut, and by eliminating it, I can tell you what that is doing to us. It obstructs the ditch, so it impedes the flow of the water. So when you get an inordinate amount of rain or thaw or whatever, because the ditch isn't properly sloped, when it hits our property, it can't go. It takes the path of least resistance, which is to come up onto our property, and floods our property. It has flooded so much that it's gone right across our driveway. When I put my vehicle down the driveway, the water got up into the wheel wells and my brakes froze up. This didn't happen this year, but it has happened previous years. We've had an inordinate winter and an inordinate year last year, but it is part of the historical things that we've had to deal with this. When they cut the ditch last year, which was not until October, and we weren't there, it was sometime in October, there was so much vegetation. There was clumps, huge clumps of grass. I have to go out there and physically rake all that up because that's more of an obstruction for the ditch. And by the way, it's not a ditch, it's the Oil Mill Creek drain. It's a drain. We paid $896 last year to the city of Port Colborne to maintain the drain. The drain is the bottom, the roadside, but you can't cut the bottom if you leave the sides. So, and I want to know, why are these butterflies so interested in being on Pinecrest, Cedar Bay, and Weaver Road? We have 28 acres. We have 5 of it that we maintain, and the rest of it, a pond, and no fertilizers or anything to kill them. I'm sure they're much happier living in a field than living alongside a road where there is exhaust for them to breathe, rather than a field that has free air. Well, I don't know, maybe you're an expert, but I'm not. You've spent almost $2,000 on signage. And, you know, we talk about, she talked about the ragweed. What about people that have allergies? And we're also dealing with a problem with mosquitoes. If you go out there right now, you'll see the green stuff that's there in the ditch, which is a breeding ground for mosquitoes. And if you watch the news at all, you know that there is a problem with West Nile virus and the Zika, which is coming north. It isn't here yet, but it's something that's in the news all the time. So the fact is, we don't want this. So, you know, do it somewhere else. Do it in the fields. Don't do it where it is inflicting the will of some onto us. And so unless the city wants to assume the liability for what could happen, she mentioned the place where she said it's 48 inches, that's right in front of my neighbor. And it obstructs the view of people backing out of her driveway. And my neighbor also opposes this, that's Linda Grant. So unless the city wants to accept the liability for what could happen in the way of an accident, for somebody trying to get out of our driveways, or for illness, or just the general liability, then they have to accept that liability in writing before you go any further with this. That's what I am here to notify you, that that's what you have to do.
Just a second, Kathy. So how many are you saying are against this?
I don't know. I don't go down the neighborhood. I just know that ourselves
you.
and our neighbor,
Okay.
we have voiced our opposition to this. When Patty came to our house the first time, she said we had never heard of it before, and she said what they were going to do, and she said, I'm here to find out if there's any opposition, and we said, of course, because we have an ongoing issue with that ditch. And she said, okay, and I said, you know, so what's going to happen with this? And she said, oh, you'll be notified of any discussion. Not once have we been notified. And like I say, it's only a fluke that I got an email from Frank Scott, who's our neighborhood email guy, and I happened to look through, and it was 260 pages of your last minutes, and there it was, Patty Moss is going to do a presentation. And I went, well, I guess I'm going to City Hall tonight. Because, you know, we have a right to have our voice heard, and I don't know how many other people there are. I just know that it affects us.
Thank you for coming. Patty, could you come back to the podium just for a sec? I just want, maybe you could answer why these areas.
Where do I start? Okay.
Why those roads?
Why those roads? Those roads were chosen because it was a mix of residential and farmland. I want to do a comparative study of the effects alongside fields as well as alongside residential properties. Next question.
Why 3 cuts in the ditch?
Oh, why 3 cuts in the ditch? Well, first of all, I called throughout Ontario. Niagara region all the way up to Hamilton are pretty much the only areas that cut 3 times. There are other areas, but many areas I've called only cut twice. Why 3 roadside mowings? That's up to city staff to answer the question of why they cut city roads. But I was looking at it more on a changing the timing of roadside cutting in order to make it a benefit for everyone, including your children, our health, our food, as well as saving money at the same time. I just want to keep it in effect. David Suzuki, I didn't mention this, but David Suzuki is partnering up with Guelph University, and they're doing a big study on increasing pollinator linear lines along roadsides and railways. They're doing a project study on increasing habitat. So this is something that's, yes, Port Colborne, this is a new initiative for them. I don't know any other place in Ontario that's doing it, but this is a great initiative to start. And regarding drainage, I spoke with Deanna Lindwall, she's with the Conservation Authority. She said roadside mowing has nothing to do regarding the drainage of roadside ditches. Please, contact the Conservation Authority and find out on your behalf of information regarding that.
And why would the butterflies rather be along the linear lines than the field?
Why would the butterflies want to be along linear lines?
Other than her fields.
Other than her fields. Well, she doesn't have fields, she has forests behind her property. She has 5 acres of cut grass as well in the front. But what monarchs do alongside those bees, what we're doing here, we're giving them a linear, continuous patch of food source. Our bees are dying. There's lack of food out there. And as you're driving around, you know this past winter, more hedgerows are being wiped out. People are landscaping, mulching their properties. That's the best place for them. That's the only place for them. This is an idea. It's not perfect. We can work out any problems. And if it is a drainage problem, if we do our research, everyone wants to do research and find out, there'll be other ways to work around it.
I just wanted to comment on what Kathy has said. There's, and maybe through you, Acting Mayor, to Mr. Hansen, is it possible to, because this came up last year, to have those areas cut in front of the properties that, you know, don't want it? I don't know, I'm just asking. And I guess because that's a problem area, whether we do this or not. It's a drainage area that has challenges, and it had challenges way before we did this, and it still does. And you know, I don't know whether we can talk to our drainage superintendent and get some ideas of possible solutions. Whether we cut that area, if it'd make a lot of difference in the drainage, I don't know. But can we cut a certain area? Is that a possibility?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Just to go back on the question about the number of cuts, this is a long-established level of service that the city has established over time. We do have depending on whether we have 3 cuts a year, and as I said, it's a long-standing level of service to determine how high the weeds are going to be allowed to grow along the roadsides. Secondly, the Oil Mill Creek drain itself, the roadside mowing is really separate and distinct from the maintenance of the drain itself. So the drains are maintained at given periods of time as reports go forward to council, and that's being done. It's not really tied to the roadside mowing itself. Certainly, the areas that have to be cut or want to be cut, that's simply at the direction of council. We understood last year in listening to the presentation that there were some areas where there were concerns with driveway entrances and access to the Friendship Trail, of course, to ensure that the sight lines were proper so people weren't in danger for vehicles coming and their crossing of the trail itself. So all those details can be worked out, and the drainage details on the drain itself are really separate from the roadside mowing itself. So we could separate those 2 issues.
And the reason I bring this up, I think this is a great program, and I would see maybe Patty at some point asking to engage a couple other roads that, you know, we may want to do. If we don't try to work some compromises in areas that might be problematic for whatever reason, and we got to do it smart, we got to talk to our drainage people on that, but, you know, we don't want to see something not go ahead in certain areas, just, you know, where we could maybe solve a problem in an area that you know, we can get around. So I think it's worth the conversation, and at least having, you know, Henry, our drainage superintendent, say, you know, would this help? Would this help the drain? I don't know, but I'd like to see that conversation take place at least.
Councillor Butters?
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Bodnar. You know, there's no point in, I don't see any point in throwing some baby out with the bathwater, but obviously when there's a drainage issue, there's a drainage issue. There's got to be a way to solve the problems at Kathy Kalniak's place without screwing up a really good program for pollinators. So I would agree with Ron, like let's continue down that road, and then so can we through you, Ron Hansen, have Henry check that out and see if he can get back to us with either a plan or suggestions on how best to deal with this and involve the Kalniaks in that as well?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I'll have Henry review this specifically with regards to
Okay,
the Oil Mill
great.
Creek and respond back to council.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Are you satisfied with that you'll get a response back?
Yes,
Okay.
I really appreciate a compromise.
Okay.
You know, I am how to get the bees or the butterflies, you know, I don't spray
Okay.
or anything like that. But it's not just for us that we're speaking, it's for Linda Grant also.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming and sharing your views, and we'll have somebody from staff contact you, okay?
And we would appreciate if there's any further discussions in the future that we can notify.
Sure. Can you do that? They leave their name? Pardon me?
Mrs. Butters has.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And once again, thank you. Thank you for coming back, Environmental Committee. Thanks. Okay, I have a very short mayor's report. This past week was the National Volunteer Week from April the 10th to the 16th, and the city recognized all its volunteers at a dinner on Wednesday the 13th that was attended by over 160 active volunteers. Deputy Mayor Main attended on my behalf as I had a previous engagement with the Niagara Home Builders Association. But I do want to take the time to thank every single volunteer in our city. We could not do what we do without you. It's your imperative to, what do you call the spokes in the wheel that keep the wheel turning, and so I just want to thank you for that. And just to mention, when I was at the Niagara Home Builders Association, the city of Port Colborne is the only one that has a membership in that, and they, the home builders were very pleased with our no development charge, and it encouraged other municipalities to do the same. But they talked so much in the north that when it came down to my last few minutes, I only had about 2 or 3 minutes to speak, but anyways, it was great. And actually today too, for volunteers, I was at Portal Village and handed out certificates there for volunteers at Portal Village, so I had a great afternoon there. The volunteer pins were handed out for anyone that reached 5-year milestones, incremental milestones, and congratulations, of course, goes out to Marcia Turner, who received her 40-year pin for volunteering with our museum. That's quite an accomplishment. And then on Friday, April the 15th, Councillor Barb Butters and I also attended a volunteer luncheon put on by the Niagara chapter of the Ontario March of Dimes, who depend on volunteers to help with all their clients. Also, I attended my first meeting last week of the Economic Development Advisory Committee. Councillor Main was there. There's a good mix on that committee, but a lot of interesting comments received by all. But our next meeting is going to be on Monday, June the 20th at 6 p.m. And then again, Deputy Mayor Main and I attended the State of the Region address in Niagara Falls, and Chair Kasman spoke of how we'll move our region forward, and he concentrated on we will succeed by moving people and goods, focusing on investment, innovation, and entrepreneurship, building a labor-ready workforce, and positioning Niagara globally, by ensuring organizational excellence, and by doing business different or better. I look forward to working with my regional councillors to receive that goal. The National Day of Mourning, that's going to be held this week on Thursday, April 28th, to mark the National Day of Mourning for workers killed and injured on the job, along with those who had suffered illness due to exposure to toxic substances in their workplace. The public is invited to attend April 28th Day of Mourning ceremonies to join workers, activists, community members, and politicians in commemorating workers killed or injured on the job. That ceremony will take place at H.H. Knoll Lakeview Park on Sugarloaf Street, starting at 12:30 p.m. And again, Deputy John Main will be representing me, as I have a regional council meeting that starts at 1 and should probably finish at about 11 p.m. because we're doing 2 meetings on that day, with maybe a half an hour break in between for supper. But we did it to ourselves. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago that we never did not one item of business. We spent the whole meeting listening to delegations, and so that is why we're stuck in that predicament of getting 2 meetings done in one day. But also, when Councillor Main, and I know probably Councillor Butters will be going up to that ceremony, there's going to be a new monument that will be unveiled that day, known as the Italian Fallen Workers Memorial. There are currently 949 verified names of victims of workplace facilities for people of Italian origin in Ontario. This monument is located in Toronto at the Columbus Centre, 201 Lawrence Avenue West. And so that will be unveiled there. And we've been asked, and you probably heard it on the news, the next census of population of agriculture, it says population and census of agriculture will take place in May 2016. So starting May the 2nd, Statistics Canada will be sending census letters and packages to all Canadian households and all Canadian agricultural operators who intend to sell at least one agricultural product. The census can be completed online or on paper. The census collects demographic information on every man, woman, and child living in Canada. Information from the census of population is issued by all levels of government, businesses, and various social services organizations and cultural organizations. The data is used in administration of government programs and in planning pensions, healthcare, employment programs, new schools, public transit, hospitals, and daycare centers. That's what my week was 2 weeks ago, since last meeting. Are there any questions, councillors? That's great. Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to, do we have regrets, Madam Clerk, from the Regional Council? We do, yes, regrets from the Regional Councillor. So we'll now move on to councillors' items. I'll start on my right, Councillor Main.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Kenny. I have a few, just a few, and I'll start with this one because I think this will get the gist of what I'm going to say going. I got this messenger from Judith, who has the Tallwood Manor. Hi, John. Hope all is going well. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Have a huge concern with dirt bikes, and she calls them dirty bikes, traveling down the railway tracks around 3 to 4 during the week and throughout the whole weekend, especially on Sunday. Noise is annoying as hell. A few moments ago, an ATV drove down Fielden. Each situation is an accident waiting to happen. Any way they can do anything about this. So I thought about it, and I thought, oh, I'm going to go on the website and find out what committees we have that look after policing. And then I found out tonight that even though there is a committee, it was a committee, and it's still on the website. And I know we don't do policing, and we complain a lot, but I really think that maybe the police have to step up again. I know last year they handed out quite a few fines, and I think the fines were around $300. So if you get caught, it's a pretty good chunk. Now, having said that, while I was on the website looking at committees, I came across a committee that was called Committee of Finance. And I thought, wow, I didn't know we had a Committee of Finance. It named some people that were on it, and some councillors. And then I find out that that committee is no longer standing either. So it was confusing for me, and it shouldn't be because I should know this. But for a person to go on our website and check out committees that aren't there anymore, I think it's probably imperative that if we don't have the committees, we should maybe remove them from the website.
Councillor Main, the clerk has a comment on that.
Pardon me?
The clerk has a comment on that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. You're correct. In fact, the clerk's office does maintain the listing of the committees on the city's website, and updates were made to remove those committees. However, last year there was, I think it was last year, there was an update that was made to the city's website, and I think unfortunately some of the updates that were made by staff just previously, unfortunately reverted back to the previous version of the web page. So it sounds like from what you're saying, this is one of those situations, and staff will go back and make sure that those out-of-date information is removed from that web page.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor?
To you, Acting Mayor. Thank you very much, Ashley. I appreciate that very much. Now, I have this box in front of me. This is another one of my concerns. And it's here for a reason, so the fellow with the cable can't really get a good picture. But this is for the Ontario Health Coalition, which will be running a referendum on the 28th of May. And it's just a referendum. It's not quite like a petition. It's a one-day vote with the opportunity to have it earlier in the week if we cannot come up with places in Port Colborne on the 28th. And what it is to let the Ontario government know that we must stop the cuts to our community hospitals, restore the services that we've lost, funding and staff to meet our community needs and care. So there'll be more news coming out, but right now the referendum is on the 28th, and I hope everybody can vote. I would like to see at least 10,000 votes out of Port Colborne. Thank you so much. And I think that's it, B.
Thank you, Councillor. This side, Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Through you to Mr. Hanson, I think we'll field this one. Concern on the end of Wildwood Road about some speeding conditions down there. A resident for the second time is asking whether speed bumps would be the preferred option. I said I'd bring it forward, and I wondered whether we can look at what that speed limit is down there and see whether there are options to do something. It seems as the summer visitors come back over, certainly there's a lot more traffic and a lot more people driving rather fast in a narrow road towards the end down there. So I wonder if you could bring something back to us and let us know our options.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Bodnar. Had the opportunity to look at the current speeds for Wildwood Road today. It's currently 60 kilometers an hour. That was put into the bylaw in the mid-1980s, I believe. Traditionally, rural roads are 80 kilometers an hour, but can be reduced to either 60, 50, or 40 as deemed appropriate for the type of road. So it was reduced to 60. If council directs, we can bring a report forward to review the speeds again and look at a possible reduction towards the lake for a portion of that road. Having said that, as council knows, as we've reported, we are going to do a traffic update in 2016, and it's something we can look at in terms of the scope of the work for the traffic review study. Speed limits are a concern in many areas, including the urban area, so it's something that could be looked at in terms of the terms of reference for the study, if council directs such.
Councillor?
Sure, I appreciate the, I believe it goes down to 40 as it gets closer to the lake. The concern wasn't for the whole road, it was more as it gets more built up with all the cottages right there, and it kind of gets towards the end. So it's more towards the end of the road that it gets the speed. And as we all know, we could make it 10 miles an hour or kilometers an hour, and people that go fast doesn't matter anyway. So I guess enforcement may be the next step. But if you could just let us know our options, if there are any at the end of the road there. Thank you. And I certainly would, I know that study that we're going to do, there's a lot of asks asked in that study, and I think we only put 50,000 away for that. And I think Mr. Hansen could probably tell us there's $100,000 worth of asks to come forward if we dump everything into that study. So certainly be worth talking about at the time. But if we could look at something that may help as the summer's coming on if there is something on Wildwood Road, that's great.
Thank you. So, Councillor, you're asking that be part of that study, right? Brett, is that what you're?
Well, I think we'll debate that at the time because there's going to be lots dumped in there and some, but I just wondered in the meantime, can we take a look at Wildwood, because that study, what would be the end of the summer before we actually even finalize that?
Okay.
So in the meantime, if there's something that, you know, maybe there's speed limit signs down or something, but just if Mr. Hansen can come back at next meeting, if that's possible, with some suggestions for Wildwood. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Desmarais?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I would just like to announce that the ward meeting Councillor Doucette and I had planned for Wednesday has changed. It will still be happening on Wednesday, but it will not be happening at Tim Hortons. We've had to move it to the fire hall. So we'll be meeting in the community room at the fire hall. The community room is accessed through the rear of the building. We'll be there from 6:30 till about 8:30, so we invite everyone to come, and all the Ward 2 residents come, bring us your concerns and your comments, and we'll be happy to receive you. So hope to see you all on Wednesday evening.
Great, thank you. Are there any staff reports to previous councillors' inquiries? No. Okay. Thank you. Harry, I had you at the end, but that's okay. You speak away. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just through you to members of council and actually the community as a whole, the Valley Health and Wellness Center, as you know, has really become a popular facility. One of the things that we're really working on is really partnering with a lot of various sport organizations. And we're very fortunate, certainly with the fact that the facility has enjoyed a lot of accessibility remarks, feedback, positive ones, and we've reacted to situations where we've had to improve accessibility. But the sledge program in particular has really taken off, and we had a very successful year with the Thunderblades. One of the things that really spun out of this was our opportunity to work with the Women's Sledge Hockey of Canada. We partnered with them recently. We sort of, I won't say we made a deal, but we certainly entertained their proposal to host a development camp, which is open to all ages, and it's set just for females. It's a female development camp, and they're partnering not just with us, but with Sportability, which is part of the physical literacy aspect of sport development, so part of the long-term athlete development program. So we're really proud of the fact that we're hosting this at the Valley Health and Wellness Center May 21st and 22nd this year. And it's an open development camp for all ages, and all the information is on their website, and there are information packages for the media to get more detail on this. And a lot of services will be provided. And we've partnered with our local vendors as well at the Valley Health and Wellness Center to work with us on this development camp. So we're really proud of the fact that we can secure this year, and hopefully it'll be something that we'll be able to roll out year after year with different sports and activities at the Valley Health and Wellness Center. Just wanted you to know a little bit about that.
Thank you. We all got our little, in case you didn't see that, COGECO people, there we go. Good, great news, Harry, that's great. And now we're going to move on to items that have been pulled for separate discussion. And we'll start off with Councillor Butters and item 1.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. It's number 1, motion fencing installed along the Welland Canal by the St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation and/or Transport Canada.
Mover is Councillor Butters, seconder is Councillor Desmarais, and speakers, Councillor Butters, Desmarais, and Main. On this side? No? Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is, it certainly has come forward through enough residents that have noticed the fencing that's gone up along the Welland Canal that is just, it's just plain ugly is what it is. So I think it's important that we send this along and try to get their attention. I'd actually kind of like to read what this says so that people really know what it's about. Whereas the city of Port Colborne is one of the more frequented destinations within the tourism-rich Niagara region, and whereas the Welland Canal is considered a must-see attraction for many of Niagara's 15 million plus tourists per year, and whereas the tourism industry annually contributes over $2.5 billion to Niagara's overall economy, now therefore the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne resolves as follows: that any and all fencing or other non-operational or non-mandated structures under the Marine Security Plan for the St. Lawrence Seaway that have been previously erected or will be erected in the future along the Welland Canal by the St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation and/or Transport Canada be replaced or completed with great thought and attention to aesthetic detail, and that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation and Transport Canada for approval and response, to Vance Badaway, Member of Parliament, Niagara Centre, for follow-up, and to the area municipalities along the Welland Canal corridor for their support. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Well, I'm very happy that Councillor Butters put this motion together and brought it forward, because it is absolutely needed. Anybody who drives down along Welland Street can see that it's kind of like being fenced in. It reminds you of a prison yard, and we should never have to see that. So I think the motion is put together well. It says it all. I don't need to say more, except that I would hope that the other municipalities along the canal would support this fully.
Councillor Main, you're next.
Yeah, I kind of like this motion as well, but what surprised me the most, Acting Mayor, is was there any forward to they were going to do this, or all of a sudden it's up and all of a sudden they're doing it and all of a sudden we're complaining about it? Was there anything that came forward to say they were going to put up 42 kilometers of fence along the Welland Canal to the municipalities? I did not read anything that said that.
Councillor Main, I did not read anything that said that either. I was like kind of caught off guard like everyone else when I saw all this fencing going along. We did have several calls to the mayor's office asking what we were doing about that. We did notify at that time via telephone our MP, Vance Badaway. Madam Clerk, was there anything else that we have done about this? Or I was told though by that office, it's that, is it called Ground Zero Security or?
MARSEC.
Yeah. And I think was why, but I think it's very, very unattractive as well. And it does not help the shipping vessels, does not. As much as you might say that, I've heard comments back from captains of vessels, and it does not secure anything there either. So, but to the clerk, do we have anything besides that? No. So hopefully, with our motion going forward, others will come on board that have this fencing all along the canal, and it's not a pretty sight. Hopefully, we'll get something sent back to us. But as far as we know, that's it. Thank you. So the motion was moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? That would be carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Main, you're next with item number 2.
Thank you kindly, Acting Mayor Kenny. Engineering and Operations Department, Engineering Division, report number 2016-69. Subject: proposed changes to the regional waste collection contract.
Moved by Councillor Main, seconded by Councillor Danch. Councillor Main.
Through you, Acting Mayor, to Ron. I'm not against the recommendation whatsoever. I read it over 3 times and I have trouble digesting. Are we going to get more for less or less for more? I just have to hear the Coles notes. It just seems to me that they came out big over the last 10 years with collecting recycles and doing this and doing that. Has the bottom fell out of the recycling market, and that's why they want to change?
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Main, I don't think that's the case. This is related, this report and the subsequent report from the region is related to changes in legislation in Ontario. The Waste-Free Ontario Act is going to make changes with regards to packagers and suppliers of materials within the province, and it's going to legislate how those materials are collected and handled after the homeowner has, or the purchaser has made, taken this product on. And the problem right now at this point, because the waste collection and processing contracts expire in 2018, there's not a clear direction from the province on how this is going to transpire. So Regional Council has directed that staff look at extending the existing contracts by 1 year and then possibly 3 years to let the Waste Ontario Act flesh out and determine how the materials are going to be handled within the province. In doing that, the Region of Niagara wants to advise each municipality of a couple things. They're reviewing, if you go to page 31 of the Appendix A, 31 of the package, and it's Appendix A to the report, they've outlined a couple things that they want to change within the current collection contract. In making the changes now, prior to the extension, they'll be able to negotiate with the contractor and secure prices on changes rather than doing it after the fact. So they've done some comparative studies with Halton, Windsor Essex, and a few others of comparable sizes that do waste management. And they're trying to standardize on the type of collection that's being done and still maintain good diversion rates and keeping materials out of the landfill sites. So most of the changes here are in the ICI sector. They're increasing the level of service in ICI for the collection. They're hoping that that's going to increase the diversion rates within the region. They're also looking at reducing the need to pick up bulky goods at the curbside and eliminating completely the pickup of white goods. What they've found, and they indicate in their letter, white goods, probably 96% of them go to the curb and they're collected immediately by scavengers. So the metal is gone. By the time the region's contractor gets there, he's had a call, the materials are gone. So most places now, the experience is white goods are no longer an issue, and they're not going to continue to pay the contractor to do this other than recovering the refrigerants in those types of materials. Other than that, we've outlined here what the enhanced levels of service are in our designated business areas. I've included in the report the brochure for the collection in the two designated business areas, Main Street and the downtown core. We feel that the service is working very well right now. We've had a few changes over the years with collection times, this sort of thing, set out times, and we're experiencing, and the regional staff agrees that we're experiencing very few complaints within Port Colborne with the service that we have at the present time. So in summary, looking at these enhancements and changes in level of service, we're not recommending at the present time that anything be changed in our current collection contract, so therefore there'd be no financial impact at the present time. We'll have to see how the provincial legislation unfolds and then determine whether any of those changes will impact how the regional waste collection contract goes forward post-2018 and post-2019. That's it.
That's what I like to hear, the simple way it's doing. I read this over 3 times and I just, decreased level of service, LDR, on and on and on. And I know this wasn't your report. This is what the province sent down, or the region?
This, through you, Deputy Mayor, the province has this draft legislation, Waste-Free Ontario Act, and I had the opportunity, once I received this correspondence April 1st from regional staff, had the opportunity last week to sit down with regional staff and review where we are in terms of the collection contract and our particular services. I received the same answer, or the same question that I asked of regional staff how's this going to unfold and how's it going to impact us? And they said they really, at this point in time, the legislation is a bit gray, and they're not really sure how we're going to be impacted by it. So the logical thing to do is to extend the existing contracts and let this play out. So we don't see any impacts at the present time, or not. As I said, they've opened the opportunity to change your enhanced level of service in each municipality. We're not recommending any change at the present time.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Do you have anything else, Councillor May? Is that it? Councillor May, is that it?
That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. One of the things that I didn't notice in here is actually the roads that we found out that we now own that we didn't think we owned before. They're not included in collection, but obviously there's residents on those roads, and we own those roads, and those people pay taxes just like everybody else pays taxes. So I'm wondering how that's going to be dealt with, and I don't know that that's the purpose in here, but obviously with collection contracts coming up and things to be renewed, I wonder if you could comment on that, please.
Deputy Mayor, I'd be happy to comment on that. We're going to do a report based on the legal advice we have now and what we know in terms of the ownership of a number of the fire lanes at the present time. We're going to do, first of all, an inventory of the existing fire lanes where we now have ownership, and in doing that we have to establish a minimum maintenance standard for those particular fire lanes, and that kind of ties into things like winter operations, winter control, snow removal, and waste collection. One of the components with waste collection is the weight of the packers themselves and the impact they have on rural roads, especially roads that aren't up to standard in terms of a hard surface. So at the present time, we wouldn't anticipate asking for any type of improvement to the or changes to the collection contract until we actually determine the level of service that we're going to establish on the fire lanes. We can continue on with the current set out at the end of the fire lanes at the present time, and that would have no impact. When we get to the point where the region themselves are renegotiating the new contract, whatever that new contract's going to be, if we in fact have a fire lane that's of adequate hard surface that a packer can actually go up and down without having to back out all the way, this sort of thing, or be able to turn around, we'd be able to address that issue. But at the present time, we couldn't change anything on the fire lanes because of their present condition. So it's something we have to review, and any areas, and we experienced this at Pleasant Beach Road, any areas where you want an increased level of service or somebody going on to a private road, we would then have to pay for that enhanced service if we're in an existing contract. So we have to ensure that the timing's right to make these requests at the time the new contract is being let by the region.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. I raise it so that it gets on the radar for future consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, item 5 was pulled by both the ward councillors, so we have to vote on that, sorry. Mover and a seconder we have, all in favor? And any opposed? There's none. And now we move on to item 5, and we'll start, both want to speak to both ward councillors, so we'll start with Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Planning and Development Bylaw Enforcement Division, report number 2016-59, subject parking and traffic tollway zones.
Thank you. And mover will be, a mover by Councillor, second by Councillor Bodnar.
Okay. Thank you, Acting Mayor. Through you to, I think, yeah, Sherry's down at the end down there. So I pulled this just to highlight and get it on people's radar, and that we will be looking at tollway zones at the end of our rural roads that meet Lake Erie. Brought on mainly, I think, by the Pleasant Beach fiasco we had last year. And so I just wondered, in here it does refer that we will have public meetings on this. Can you confirm that, or is that up to council to direct? I just want to know whether that's a fact.
Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Bodnar, yes, absolutely, we'll be having public meetings. We'll be notifying the public, we'll be advertising these meetings, and eventually they'll come before council for conclusion and part of our recommendation.
On that same kind of thing, because I mentioned Pleasant Beach Road, I was down there on Sunday, and that garbage is still piling up down there. Just people just dumping it off. While it doesn't pertain just to this, I wonder if we could have staff kind of come up with some suggestions. I know the region has to look after that, but it just can't, we can't allow people to just dump stuff down there. There's mattresses and all kinds of stuff. And I don't believe it's people driving down there to do that. I think it's the local people that are just getting a new mattress and throwing it out there. So I got some ideas, and I'll talk to staff, but I think we need to just not say it's somebody else's problem. Let's try to work on this. Thank you.
Mr. Hanson?
Deputy Mayor, if I could just speak to that. Having just met with the region, and for several years now, we've been working cooperatively with regional staff in trying to control the issue of waste collection and dumping at the end of Pleasant Beach Road. I think they've done an exceptional job in putting the carts out there that were there, and educating the public at the end of Pleasant Beach Road and handing flyers out and really talking to everybody to try to get everybody on board. There's an ongoing problem with it, but we tried to, one of the solutions was we tried to get an enclosure there with the association so we could have it fenced in and then really control how the waste was deposited in the area. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a consensus from the association itself to allow us to use that property. So it continues on at the end of the road, but I think, you know, give all credit due to the region themselves, and they've really made an exceptional effort to put the carts out. And I know we see a problem on the weekends, but the collection is Monday mornings, and it gets cleaned up quite nicely every week. So we're sort of bracing for that now, and I had actually raised that issue with regional staff last week when I met with them, and we agreed to keep talking about Pleasant Beach and try to continue to resolve the issue down there. But there is a point where it's difficult to make it much better than it is now without some other solution. We've tried things like putting more waste containers that the city puts out. We put one or two out at the end of the road, but those, instead of getting the waste from the beaches, those fill out with household waste. So we could put out 20 barrels and they would be full of household waste. So it doesn't solve anything. So there's no easy answer to that one.
Councillor Butters?
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. I have a question through you to Mr. Aquilina on the timing of the public meetings. It's kind of difficult with so many of the folks. I'm speaking mainly of Pleasant Beach right now because of the problems we had there last summer. You know, people coming back from wherever they are to the cottages, and that's just kind of starting to happen now with spring. So how are we going to get this like ball really rolling quick enough so that some of these things can be put into place before we really get into the big time summer holy mackerel onslaught? I know that there's other things put in place to divert people to the other beaches and proposed signage and all that, but is the signage going to be held up, you know, until there's a public meeting, or is the public meeting mostly going to deal with the tow-away zone and the actual parking? Like, how's that going to work, and what can we expect reasonably for this summer? And then the other thing, Madam Acting Mayor, is there's a couple of residents here from the Pleasant Beach area who have some questions as well. So I'd also like to ask for leave of council to allow them to ask their questions on this report. I've explained that you know, in terms of a public meeting, that's when it'll really get hashed out. But if they have questions about the report, this would be okay to ask.
Does council have any objection to that? All in favor of letting them speak? Pardon me? We need a mover and a second, so we'll put Councillor Butters and Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you.
And if the individuals would like to come up to the podium and ask your questions, that would be great. Thank you. Please identify yourself,
You can let me know.
your name and your address. Thank you. And there's a little red button for you to push there so the TV can pick you up. Thank you.
Ron Barda.
And Heather McDougall. And our address is 5474 Fire Lane 22.
And our issue is basically that we have a major influx of tourists in the summertime, and there is no outhouses anywhere around for them to use that are viable. There's no waste containers anywhere for people to put it in, which Mr. Hansen already addressed. But there are no barrels for anybody to put any garbage in to begin with. So the refuse all is left on the beach for us to clean up when we have time to clean it up. And I myself personally witnessed people going into the lake to do whatever they had to do, and that's our drinking water and the area where we want to participate in swimming and other activities.
Which is not related to parking, but it's the people that are all coming, and there's, you know, a lot
It's a related issue
there.
So
We really appreciate if they could talk to the association people, though, and discuss the parking and what would work the best. That will help a lot. If we can do it when they come, again, that's a problem. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just before you leave the podium, is there any possibility, Mr. Hansen, of having some barrels for garbage put out right on the beach? I know our guys go out and look at the beach, but I don't know if they particularly attend that beach. But maybe if we had that part of the student, I know the students go around and check everything, so maybe if we had a couple of barrels that could be used for waste disposal, is that possible, do you think?
Deputy Mayor, we do put barrels just at the exit, at the end of the paved area, and where it goes up onto the sand dune, we do put barrels out there, and we do empty them on a regular basis. But as I said, they fill up almost immediately with household garbage, and it's a constant problem. We also put Johnny on the spots out there during the summer as well to assist, yes.
Councillor Butters?
I don't think there was a Johnny on the spot out there last year.
Yeah, there was one.
Was there one?
There was one, but I'll tell you, I opened the door and I closed it quite quickly.
You wouldn't want to go in there.
Okay. So there'll be a Johnny on the spot out there this year?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, yes, we put that out every year. I understand that it's not the most sanitary thing, but it's something that we've done as again, a minimum level of service for the beach, for Pleasant Beach.
There's nowhere to wash your hands. It's just,
Yeah.
No? That's something we need to address then with our
And
parks.
as far
Thank you.
As far as the parking goes, there was a major issue. Many of us residents, we have to almost stand guard at our laneways to stop people from parking so we can get in and out, because otherwise we cannot find the people who have parked there and blocked off our driveways. And then you can't either get in or you can't get out.
Okay, thank you. Sherry Hansen's our senior bylaw enforcement officer. She's going to address that too. Sherry, could you just add, maybe comment on that? Thank you. With your new, that you've got in your report.
To you, Deputy Mayor. One of the areas that we are looking at, and that's why we'd like to have a public meeting, is to address some of these issues, because some of the areas that you have cottages down there only have a driveway for one, or they're only, so that if we put a total blockage down there, you wouldn't be able to have any visitors or anybody coming over. So we're going to house a public meeting so everybody can address this issue, put in their input, and then council will make a decision on the type of restrictions we're going to have in that area.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. And thank you for coming and giving your comments. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, could Mr. Aquilina just answer my question about the public meetings and the timing and what we can expect? to hopefully get this done to alleviate problems this summer.
Mr. Aquilino?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you to Councillor Butters. Sherry and myself had this discussion. Because of the sheer size of the area and the seasonal nature of them, it's going to be very difficult to actually ensure that everyone gets the notice. They're going to be out of town. What we're going to try to do is get our best foot forward to get as much notice as possible to these residents ahead of time. Obviously in the newspapers, but not everyone gets the newspapers. There's a lot of homes there. Maybe we can drop off leaflets, get the word out to the associations, because this is a large area. And, you know, as council would know, that it's hard to get everyone out, especially when there's a lot of people from out of town that live here. So we're going to try our best, put on the city's website, but it's a matter of a lot of word of mouth.
So you plan to give them several alternative dates? Is that what you're planning?
Well, through you, Deputy Mayor, I think we would like to have one date that as many people could attend. But if it's possible, it may be a requirement that we notify as many people, and we have separate kind of one-on-one meetings with individuals as well. It's just, it's a huge area. It's going to be difficult.
It is, yeah. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I think people need to understand this. We are making accommodations for a beach that technically doesn't exist. And that's a concern of mine. So we're now putting an outhouse. We are now going to make sure that everything is there when we're supposed to be not encouraging people to go because it's not a beach, it's a road allowance. So that's a concern of mine, because the minute you start doing that, now you've got a beach, now you have liabilities. If you're saying it's not a beach, why are you putting all the amenities there? I'm just throwing that out. I understand why it's happening, and I know why, and I've used it myself. Okay, when I had my own kids, you know, when they were much younger. But at the same time, I keep hearing from staff, it's not a beach. It's not considered a city beach. It's considered a road allowance. Therefore, the minute we put amenities, we're saying it is a beach. Now we have liabilities that we didn't have before. So I have a concern for the liabilities to the city if we start doing that. And I know why we're doing it, but it's so almost like a catch-22. So, you know, I think we need to discuss that. I don't know if tonight's the evening we should discuss that, but I think it's a major discussion we have to have.
Thank you, Councillor Chisette. I believe Councillor Bodners, you are next, and then Councillor Bodners.
I would say
Let Bodner go first, okay. Okay, Councillor Bodners, you have the floor.
Thank you. This will be a beach no matter what you do. It's a community beach. It's not Daytona Beach, and it's become Daytona Beach. You know, like we've got people packed in there, they almost need bunk beds to lay on the beach. And I don't believe we're changing anything. We've always had an outhouse there. We've always had some garbage containers there. So I don't think there's any extra liability, and it will always be a community beach. We just don't need people, you know, from all the other communities coming down there and jamming it up. It just can't handle that, so.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Butters, did you still want to speak to the issue?
I agree with Councillor Bodner on that one, 100%. We can call it whatever it is. It's a community beach, bottom line. Just, it is what it is. I guess my question goes back to public meetings. Like, is your thought process for all the roads to come to like one meeting? Because this is just the way my brain works. Because we had such a hell of a time at Pleasant Beach last year, my thought process is to tackle it, you know, as that's kind of the priority area, to try to get, you know, signage and all those kinds of things done. Because it isn't a big issue at the end of Weaver Road, and I don't think it's a big issue on the other road allowance beaches. You know, I think it's more just the folks that live in close proximity go down just like I did, you know, with my kids down the end of Weaver Beach or whatever. But those certainly did not experience the difficulties that the Pleasant Beach was last year. So wouldn't it be better to kind of pick that off and really concentrate on the public meeting side of it for that and get things passed for that area and then work our way through? Thanks.
Yep, through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Butters. That's a great point, and while you were saying that, I had an idea in my head. Council will recall the problems we had at Pleasant Beach, which led to this report coming forward. We know that that is the major issue. We do know that in the wintertime we have issues, not this past winter, we have issues with the fishermen blocking areas as well. Maybe to address the issue what we know is the hot button issue, the Pleasant Beach area gets attention first. We have a separate meeting just dealing with that. And then as we go along, we can have separate public meetings dealing with at the end of each road allowance. It might be easier to get all the neighbors involved, the notifications as well. And if I can, through you, Deputy Mayor, to answer the question about the beach itself, part of this report also addresses the signage we want to put on the property at the end of the road allowances, directing people down to Centennial and to Nickel Beach, and advising people that there are facilities there are parking available. So that's the second component of this report, is to kind of have the direction to say okay with the signage at the end of those road allowances. So if I could, and also Deputy Mayor, I asked Sherry to be here as well. She had a presentation if council wants to have an overall view of the report, or are you interested in waiting until the public meeting process takes place? But Sherry is available to actually give a more detailed presentation of what the report is asking and seeking.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilita. That was my next person to call up. Sherry, I think we should hear from you. If you could, you know, give us a review of what you've looked at and give us a better understanding so that when we do have these public meetings, we're very much aware of where we're headed.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Kenny, I put a little tiny PowerPoint presentation together, which you can see on the screen, to just basically give you some highlights of the report. The Bylaw Enforcement Report 2016-59 is the Parking and Traffic Tollway Zone Report, and it deals with eight highways that we have: Lorraine Road, Weaver Road, Pinecrest Road, Vimy Road, Cedar Bay Road, Silver Bay Road, Wildwood Road, and Pleasant Beach Road, and all these roads go down into a beach and right to the lake. We have issues with, again, the fishermen parking down by the ends, opposite of the fire lanes, fire trucks, and issues of difficulty getting through those, as well as some of the Wildwood and Pleasant Beach areas where are the two main beach areas that we have for parking issues in the summertime. What I'm proposing in the report is that the parking and traffic bylaw have an amendment to create a definition called tollway zone. And this means the signage depicting an area designated by this bylaw where a vehicle may be towed away forthwith, right away, and it'll have a no parking symbol with a tollway zone underneath it or a combination sign. So people get the idea it's not just a prohibited area, but it's also a tollway zone, and it gives a little bit extra teeth to the bylaw with regards to getting these vehicles towed away and people not wanting to park there. Presently, in the Parking and Traffic Bylaw 89-2000, another amendment would be to create a prohibited parking tollway zone.
Sherry, Councillor Doucette, we just have to ask you a question about that before you go any further.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. The tollway zone is fantastic. Who do they call on weekends? And where's this number going to be so that people will know who to call and when to call and so on and so forth? If we call it a tollway zone, they have to be able to call it all the time. So and I'm just wondering, maybe the signage could have the phone number on it, or if you don't do that, then you have to tell people where to find that number to call to get it towed away. Especially residents in the area, they would have to know what that is and use it. So the concept is great. I think it needs to be done, but how it gets done on weekends and after 5, I don't know.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I have the impending schedule for the officers. They will be working afternoons, weekends. They will be on call with regards to their service of doing that area. The after hours, 835-5079 is also an area where residents can also call into, which will then be able to call an officer to that area. But every weekend, a officer will be working, whether or not it be till 3:30 in the afternoon or 8:30 at night, depending on their schedule. But I have been working on their schedule so that between May and September were the busiest times, an officer will be working in that area. The tollway zone itself is a regulatory sign, so a phone number on that signage, it would not be allowed with regards to regulatory signs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Continue, please. Councillor May.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. To Sherry, this is just quick. Would you be tendering out the tow truck the same way we did for the fellow that does the cleanup on the bylaw to 21 days? You know, or do we just, would it be a random tow truck? That would be my concern if we had somebody there, you know, a tender process that we already had the guy, he comes down, lickety-split, and does his job.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, we have not had a tendering process in several years with regards to the tow truck companies. We do have a tow truck company we use on call. We have their rates. We know each officer has their number. If council would like us to re-tender that out to see if we can get better rates or more customers. This towing company we have now has several trucks, especially when we're dealing with them in the wintertime and I need 2 and 3 trucks at a time. I get 2 and 3 trucks, not just a towing company with 1 truck to assist us.
Thanks for that information, and that would be on the website, the tow truck number?
No, through you, Deputy
Or
Mayor.
would it, excuse me, would it be just through the bylaw person who would call the tow truck?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, just the bylaw enforcement officer would call the tow truck company, and the tow truck company would then go on our authorization to remove the vehicle.
Perfect, thank you.
To continue on, the next section would be the parking prohibited tollway zone. So subject to sections 203 and 204, which is no standing and no stopping, where official signs are on display, no person shall park a vehicle or permit a vehicle to remain parked on a highway at the sides or between the limits as set out in columns 1, 2, 3, and 4 of column C2 of this bylaw. So C is the prohibited parking, C2 will be parking prohibited tollway zones. And then if you go to the next slide, the Parking and Traffic Bylaw 89-2000 Amendment continued that Schedule C2, Parking Prohibitions Tollway Zone to Bylaw 89-2000 as amended, be further amended by adding thereto the following. And that just shows you an example of the schedule. So depending on the street, so for example, Vimy Road between Pinecrest and on both north and south side from Pinecrest to Cedar Bay, anytime. Vimy Road is already a narrow road with no parking on both sides all the way through. If we wanted to take that out of just regular parking and put that into the tollway zone, we would put it into Schedule C2, and that fine would be increased for C2 schedules. Then again, if you go to the next slide, the AMPS, which is the parking program that we have now with regards to penalties, the Administrative Monetary Penalty System. The Traffic Bylaw 89-2000 is meant to be further amended by adding thereto number item 69, section 205-0301. Park in a tollway zone is now going to be a $60 offense. The current fee is $30 for parking in a prohibited area. It has been doubled to $60, and I have kept this in line with other offenses that we have so that it's not a skew of other offenses or outrageous in comparison to parked in a designated fire route or disabled parking. The next slide shows you an overview, and you can see the large massive area that we're dealing with in each highway with regards to a tollway zone and no parking. So after this next slide, I've gone and done individual zoomed in areas of each area. So the first one would be Lorraine Road, and the proposed tollway zone from Lakeshore to 25 meters north of Fire Lane number 1. We'll show you that this area is, because we have no major streets The next major street is like 1,000 meters plus the other way, so we have to go from the lake shore out, and that's how our measurements have been done. So you can see, even though that I'm measuring from the lake shore, you can see that that's the beach area, and some of that is not even the travel portion of the road. And then it goes out into the area past the fire lane. Now, why I'm suggesting that they have these, this public meeting is because some of these areas only have one driveway, or if we prohibit parking on both sides of the street, these people would not be allowed to have any company, or their company would have to park 50 to 100 meters away. So this particular one happens to be Lorraine Road that encompasses fire lane number 1. On the next one, you have Weaver Road, which again is 25 meters north of the last fire lane, which is fire lane number 2. And you can see that the proposed tow-away zone is in yellow, and the red zone is the existing no parking is only, no parking is all on the west side of the road, throughout all the rest of the roads that we have here. And that goes from the lake shore to 609 meters, 609.5 meters north of the lake shore. So it's quite a fair distance that they're prohibiting people from parking on one side that we have right now. The next one is Pinecrest Road, which again is 25 meters, and that is just past fire lane number 2. And the next one that we explained is Vimy Road, and Vimy Road is already a prohibited parking on both sides, so we would just change that to a tow-away zone. Cedar Bay Road is encompassing fire lanes 4 and 5. And Silver Bay Road is encompassing fire lanes 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12 that exit onto Silver Bay Road. And now we get into the interesting one, which are Wildwood Road, and the angle parking is between fire lanes 15 and 16 near the beach end. And the proposed tow-away zone would be 25 meters north of fire lane 13, 14, and 15. And again, if we put this through without a public meeting, these people in this area would not have any parking until you got past fire lane 13, which would be up near the Michener Drain, all the way from the lake. And then you have the last one, which is Pleasant Beach Road. And when I was doing the research, even though people angle park between fire lanes 24 and 26 right now at the end, there was nothing in 89-2000 showing that that was a bylawed section. So I've added that into the proposed report right now, because that's an existing one where there's businesses down that end that people want to access and get to that beach. And then the proposed tow-away zone again would be from 25 meters past the last fire lane, encompassing fire lanes 21, 22, 23, and 24. And you are just shy of, maybe a couple hundred meters, just shy of side road there at the top, Michener. Oh, sorry, it's Michener Road at this one, yeah. That, again, we're looking at a huge distance, and when you zoom into any of these areas, you can see some of these cottages have enough room for one driveway, one car, and we would be displacing everyone in this entire area. So that's why we would like to have a public meeting, so that we can have some input from the residents in this concern.
So just one question, so you're going to still allow that little bit of angle parking, is that what you said? Are you going to do that in that one area?
The angle parking on Pleasant Beach Road?
Yeah.
Yes, and that's part of the report in
Okay.
the recommendations.
Thank you. Here's you. Councilor Butler.
Just a comment, I'm happy to see that penalty raised to $60 from $30. Some of the people just thought it was worth $30 to park there for the whole day, especially if you're coming from Toronto or something like that. That wasn't, you know, it's like parking in a municipal parking lot often in Toronto, so I think that was a necessary move. And will those fines be posted, Sherry? I know we're limited what we can do on signs, but would that $60 be posted someplace in our signage package?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. No, the fine rate would not be, but again, with the public meetings and the advertisement with regards to these issues, it would be available on our webpage, and beach information with regards to the actual fine, as well as they're going to be towed away, and then there's the towing charge plus the storage fee. So once they do it once, I don't think they're going to do it again.
Councillor Button?
Thank you. Just in regards to our signs that were proposed to put at the end of the Pleasant Beach to advertise Centennial and Nickel Beach, for Centennial Beach, will we have free parking on that sign? I can't remember what it said, but yeah, but they have to pay at Nickel. Will that say that? And then Centennial will be free parking? You know, just so somebody doesn't get down there and, you know, find out they had to pay at Nickel Beach to get in. They weren't expecting that for some reason, because they aren't paying at Pleasant Beach.
My understanding, through you, Deputy Mayor, is that Centennial is free. I am not sure if it says free there on it, but typically you have the P that represents its parking, municipal lot. I'm not aware of anything out there that indicates it's free, other than it's just a natural assumption.
But the sign we're going to put at Pleasant Beach, you know, saying go to Centennial, Centennial should say free parking. That would be an enticement maybe for people to go there. And maybe on the Nickel Beach sign, people should know that when they drive all that way, they're going to be expected to pay for that beach. So I'm just, whatever way you word that sign, it might be worth giving people a heads up before they leave that area. So.
Thank you.
Did you have something to say?
No, I was going to say that's great information, and we'll try to incorporate that into signage.
Yeah, Councillor Butters.
So so the idea is we're going to proceed and concentrate on the Pleasant Beach area first? Is that the?
That's what Mr. Aquilina has stated.
Okay, then that's great. And I just want to thank you all for a lot of hard work on this stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good that thank you, Mr. Aquilina, for including the public in that meeting, because you're right. If you had company and your company parked in front of your house, all of a sudden, guess what? You can't have company. Right, that's going to be a big challenge, and there's going to be some that are not going to probably be too happy about that, but we'll deal with that issue at the public meeting and get everybody's input, and hopefully we can come up with a solution. But thank you for your hard work on this, and Sherry, thank you for bringing that report to us tonight, and for your answering our crazy questions that we sometimes have. Thank you. Did you have something else to add?
Just that the recommendation, number one, you would have to remove the additional roads that I put into the recommendation with regards to the public meeting. So that recommendation would have to be changed.
Madam Clerk, can we do that? The clerk came up with a marvelous idea. She's great. She said, we'll just put down that add to the recommendation that Pinecrest area will be done first. Pleasant Beach. Pleasant Beach will be done first. Leave everything in there, because we are going to be dealing with all those issues, and we're just going to put in there that that will be addressed first. Is council clear on that? Is that okay with the mover and the seconder? Yeah, that's awesome. Is that awesome? That's great. Any more comments? Okay, all in favor? No opposed? That passed unanimously. Thank you. And now our next item up is Councillor Danch. Item number 12, Councillor Danch. Thank you.
Mark Morello, teacher, St. John Bosco Catholic School, request for use of the city's picnic tables for the St. John Bosco Catholic School Fun Night on Friday, June 3rd.
Mover is Councillor Danch. Seconder? Any seconder? Councillor Doucette. Thank you. Councillor Danch.
I was asked to pull this. Obviously, the city's not in, has no interest in helping out the schools with their fun night. I mean, I guess being the city school, why would we want to help them? So I think just to get things moving here and continue the evening, I'll do that myself with my own personal truck, like I've done before for another school, being Dewitt Carter, who's requesting 12 tables for May the 26th. So I'll look after this and maybe get a hold of Mark and tell him that I can help him out, and if we could make sure that we can at least have 12 tables available for May the 26th for DeWitt Carter, and I'll pick those up myself as well.
Well, Councillor Danch, thank you very much for offering to do that. I guess I'll go and ask now Mr. Hanson. Mr. Hanson, where would he go and get those tables and bring them? There are volunteers from that school. Mark said that he has, he would not require any city staff to assist with the unloading and loading, and he has volunteers that would take care of this. So these volunteers would then again help Councillor Danch, who will volunteer. They will pick them up and deliver them back to the city yard. Just instruction on what time you could do that and get them over to that school. And thank you once again. I think it's important that we help our schools. I really do. I believe, I know our policy says that it has to be significantly, what does it say, significantly?
Event of municipal significance.
And I think an event of municipal significance, and what event is more important than our children? So again, thank you for taking this on. Councillor Danch, I really appreciate it. Now, if we could just have some direction for Councillor Danch, that would be great. And then I see a Councillor Bodnar, I see you. Okay, Councillor Main, you have a question or a comment? Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Yes, I do have a comment. And my comment would be, school boards aren't destitute by any means. They have more money than we do. They also have trucks, they have trailers, they have all the stuff that the city has as well. And I found this out, not this winter, but the winter before when it came time for snow removal. They were all crying, poor sister, that they couldn't clean their snow. It was a city problem. And when I addressed it, that it was their responsibility, the very same night, there was a half a dozen vehicles, snow plows, trucks, all from the DSBN. So I understand the concept. They want to borrow tables, fine, but we shouldn't feel sorry to the point that we should have to use a city vehicle to transport the picnic tables, or whether we use a school board truck. It's all same, it's all part and parcel. They need the picnic tables, school board doesn't have them, I'm all for it. But let's not use the poor sister thing about, you know, the school board doesn't have the equipment to move them, because I know they have the equipment to move them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor. Through you to Mr. Hanson, maybe, or whoever can answer this. I can remember we put a policy in where we weren't providing tables to, to different, because we had a lot of requests, and we finally had to say, sorry, what if this was July? We don't have picnic tables just sitting around waiting. You're going to have to strip them out of parks to take them there. What's the policy we have in place right now? We can't just arbitrarily say we're going to do this if we have a policy in place that says we don't do it. I just haven't. I know the policy was there before, and we just decided we weren't doing it because the requests were getting, a lot. And I believe there was damage to the tables. Who pays for that? Do they have to put a deposit down and someone has to check them when they come back? Great idea, these fun nights. They're wonderful, but again, what's our policy?
I believe I'm going to refer to the CAO because we both looked at the policy, and I believe it said, our policy says that we will not deliver or pick up tables to an area that is not a municipally significant event.
That's right.
That's what the policy says. That we will not do it, but we have a councillor willing to do that. They will pay the rental of the tables, whatever it is. I think I was told. Mr. Hakeem, can you tell me what that is for the rental of the tables?
The current rate that we council's approved is $2.50 per table. Okay,
so they will pay that amount. And again, Councillor Danch, thank you for volunteering to do that. And if everyone's in favor, since Councillor Danch is doing it, pay the $2.50 to the school and he'll make his arrangements with the principal there, Mark. So all in favor of lending these or renting these tables to the school with Councillor Danch picking them up and returning them? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed?
Excuse me, Acting Mayor. Ron didn't get an answer for his question. He asked the question, what was the policy on the picnic tables?
Policy, and I told him what the policy was. For a significantly municipal event, is that correct? That's us delivering them and picking them up, and there's a charge for that. But we're not charging them because Councillor Danch is willing to do it.
Excuse me, but I think his question, and he can ask it, this is in July. Where are these tables coming from? I think that's what he really wanted to know.
No, it's in June. It's in June.
But, so anybody in July can't have these tables? In August?
I guess if we have none to give, we have them to give them because they're not out in parks.
And is this a municipally significant event? If not, we're going to have to vote on whether we want to change our, well, I'm not trying to make this difficult, but who gets the tables? Does a wedding, if somebody's having a wedding in a backyard, do they get a table?
Well,
I'm asking the question because we have something wrote down, so.
Mr. CEO, I'll refer to you.
So, through the acting mayor to Councillor Bodner, I don't know where to start. There's a lot of material here. Your question has multifaceted. Staff has no predisposition against lending picnic tables or giving picnic tables out for rent. What we need is council direction to take leave from the policy. I can't have one council member come to my office and say, I say, give the picnic tables. I need a vote in this chambers, and what you're having right now is healthy debate. Direct us to do them or direct us not to do them. We have no predisposition. The fact is that there is a policy, and if council decides to deviate from that policy, it should be via a vote here. The policy, typically these events are in one of our parks, so the picnic tables are either already there or being moved from one park to another as demanded. This one is off-site. It's not the only one that's off-site. In fact, we might have another request before council for the same day, but a different time of day, which might make it easy to administer both requests because they'll go from one site to the other. But lastly, I think is the determination of whether the event has municipal significance. So that could be anything from a park event to a fundraiser, Terry Fox Run, United Way event, and schools are community events, and they are significant to the people who attend the school. I guess the question would be to council, policy-wise, is it to the whole municipality? Education's a worthy institution. Private events like a wedding might be in our own facility, so they would already probably be getting you can't really get them delivered to your backyard, I don't think, but if you're having an event in the pavilion at the park, it would be delivered. So I'm not sure if any of that helps to inform council's decision. I'd be prepared to answer more questions.
Councillor Bodden.
Oh, that's fine. That clears it up. I thought we were very much more restrictive in who we gave and allowed to have picnic tables and city services as delivering them. I guess I was mistaken. So if our policy says that just ask and we'll bring them, then that's the way it is.
No, they're not being brought. Councillor Danch is picking them up. He's doing it. He's doing the work. Volunteering, his time, his truck, his staff, whatever it takes to get them there. He did it for DeWitt, and now he's willing to do this again for St. John Bosco. He's done it for DeWitt for 3 years, Councillor.
God bless him.
God bless him is right. That's what I say.
I'll have you know I had a popsicle from
So there is grafting.
Okay.
Sorry, through the acting mayor to Councilor Bodner, let me be unequivocal. This isn't direct exception to our policy. Council would be granting an exception. The policy is that they stay on city property, that will move them from one park to another, and that our crews will do it at the, I guess, what would you call them, at the fee to the user of the picnic tables. This is not an event, well, I guess the line's blurry if this is of municipal significance or not. This is off-site. This is definitely an exception but it's up to council if they choose to grant that exception.
Okay, then I'll go back to the question. All in favor of renting these tables with Councillor Danch delivering them and picking them up? All in favor? Yeah, the seconder was, was it? Was Yvonne? Okay. Frank moved it, and Yvonne seconded. And all in favor, let's go again here. 1, 2, 3, 4. All of us. Whoa. Unanimous. And Councillor Danch, once again, my sincere thanks for helping out our ward. Thanks. Councillors, I think that's the end of our items. And so, any notices of motion? No notices of motion. Adjournment, thank you, Councillor Danch and Councillor Doucette. Done. We'll now move on to the council portion of tonight's. Any introduction of addendum items, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, none this evening.
Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda, Councillor Butters and Councillor Demaray. Disclosures of interest? No disclosures of interest. I'm going to do the adoption of minutes in block. Special meeting of council held on March the 21st. Special meeting of council held on April 11th. And regular meeting of council held on April the 11th. Mover, Councillor Main. Seconder, Councillor Doucette. All in favor? And that would be carried. Thank you. Raise your hand on that? Yeah. And any items requiring separate discussion? Seeing none. Mover and a seconder. Mover, Councillor Doucette. Seconder, Councillor Bodnar. Approval of the items not requiring special. Mover, Councillor Main. Seconder, Councillor Demaray. All in favor? Okay. Proclamations. You got all those, Ashley? Did I get them all? Did I get them all? Yeah. Yep, good. Proclamation, it's Seniors Month for the month of June 1st to June 30th. A mover for that, Councillor Butters, Councillor Bodnar. All in favor? Yeah, me too. Me too. Minutes of boards, commissions, and committees. The minutes of the Flavors Advisory Committee of February the 4th, 2016. All in mover first, Councillor Bodnar, Councillor Butters. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Consideration of bylaws. Right, so now we will go into.
Oh, we gotta read the bylaws.
Yeah.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. That the following bylaws be enacted and passed. Bylaw 63533316 being a bylaw to authorize entering into a lease agreement with Jennifer Crum of Psychological Rentals respecting the lighthouse at Lock 8 Gateway Park. Bylaw 63543416 being a bylaw to temporarily close a section of Clarence Street to vehicular traffic every Thursday from May 12th to September 29th for the purposes of the Port Colborne Downtown Cruisers Association Cruisers Night. Bylaw 63553516 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 60824814 being a bylaw to establish a system for administrative penalties respecting the stopping, standing, and parking of vehicles. Bylaw 63563616 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 89-2000 being a bylaw regulating traffic and parking on city roads. Bylaw 63573716 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 63452516 being a bylaw to adopt the estimates for the city of Port Colborne for its operations for the year 2016. Bylaw 63583816 being a bylaw to set and levy the rates of taxation for the city purposes for the year 2016. Bylaw 63593916 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 61299514 respecting the removal of the holding symbol from lands known as the lands west of Mellenby Avenue and north of Fire Station Number 1 for the purposes of government operations for public works. And finally, bylaw 63604016 being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its regular meeting of April 25th, 2016.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mover, Councilor Main, seconder, Councilor Danch. All in favor? And that would be carried unanimously. Thank you. Motion to go into closed session. Councilor Doucette, Councilor Danch. The council now do proceed to go into closed session in order to address the following matters. Community and Corporate Services Division Report number 2016-72, subject appointment to the East Village Neighborhood Improvement Task Force pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. And that would be it. Any disclosures of interest in the closed session? We'll do that later, right? Thank you. Okay, so I guess motion to adjourn into closed session. Councilor Buttard and Councilor Demeray and Crowe. Everybody's good. Thank you.